Hey, welcome everyone. My name is Tristan Claridge, and I'm the convener of this webinar series for the International Social Capital Association. The association's mission is to advance the research and application of the social capital concept. And if you're interested in finding out more about membership, you can visit our website for more information. In this session, we welcome Carlos Vignolo and Álvaro Contreras for a presentation titled Building Social Capital, a System Engineering Approach. Carlos is an associate professor in the Department of Industrial Engineering at the University of Chile, where he's been since 1972. In addition to degrees from the University of Chile, he also undertook graduate studies in the political economy and economic development at the University of Sussex in the UK. He currently serves as academic director of the Innovation and Socio-Technology program. His research, teaching, and applied work focus on radical innovation and paradigm shifts, applied constructivism, social capital, and self-engineering. Álvaro holds a degree in industrial civil engineering and a master's in management and public policy, both from the University of Chile. His postgraduate thesis was titled Design of a Strategy to Strengthen the Social Capital of the Aysén Commune. Was an action research project focused on generating social capital in the part of Chilean Patagonia. He's currently actively working on strengthening social capital in the Aysén community. We're delighted you've agreed to give this webinar. Welcome, Carlos and Álvaro, and over to you for the presentation.
Thank you very much, Tristan. Thank you, and thanks to the leadership team at ISCA for giving us this opportunity to share some of the main conclusions and proposed actions as a result of my more than 50 years of academic work and life, 30 of which have been deeply marked by the topic of social capital. I will share also the work we have carried out the past 3 years in collaboration with Álvaro Contreras, who will present at the end the specific project in which we are involved now. I will argue later on in relation to this radical constructivist approach we have been promoting and using, that emotions play a crucial role in building reality, constructing reality. So I want to share my emotions now, my mood, to be consistent with my argument. I'm not very well prepared. I got a stomachache in Aysén, where I was running a workshop on Monday. I've been sleeping very bad, and I'm very nervous. And I realized that my English, which is not very good, it has been fading away since I lived in UK 50 years ago. And I realized that when I get nervous, I really pronounce badly. And I was telling Tristan I made a mistake I usually do, that I may introduce changes in the last minute. So I apologize for that. I'll do my best. And if it is too bad, I promise you that I'm going to prepare another one. I will send you afterwards. So thank you again for being here in this moment. The main, it didn't work, the PowerPoint. I will have to stop and do it again. I don't know what this is happening. Okay. Those are the objectives of this presentation. As I said, the general objective is to share some of our main interpretive and action-oriented conclusions of my work, the work in the last 3 years with Álvaro. We want to invite others to get interested in this radical constructivism and this system engineering way of approaching the building, the strengthening of social capital. We want to very briefly share some of the key technologies we have developed to create a strengthening social capital. We assign such an importance to social capital that I propose that we have to create a new discipline to make research, design, and apply and assess these ways of increasing social capital. It is very clear, and that's the reason why I'm not going in any profound, deep into the importance of social capital. I think everybody knows that it is very crucial, that it is being going down in very many countries, and so we have to work very hardly to change that tendency. We are going to present some of the main projects we have realized and the results of them. And finally, as I said, Álvaro will talk about this last project in which we are now. How do we understand social capital? It's very different from other, and that's the reason, other definitions, and that's the reason why we decided to put it here. We understand social capital as a potential. It's a potential to do something, and it's a potential to generate value. And we say there are two acceptions of value: subjective value, that is what certain people, or a group of people, consider valuable, and shared value, a set of principles that the community accepts, respects, and proposes. Oh, okay. Our conceptual model is based on advances in biology of knowing, conversing, and loving, as developed by two great Chilean scientists, worldwide renowned, Humberto Maturana and Francisco Varela. We were very lucky to get in contact with them in the 80s, and I've been learning from them and working with Maturana and with Varela for a long time. And secondly, we base our model also in neuroscience concepts such as mirror neurons and neuroplasticity. Both conceptual models work in the direction that people not only don't know how reality is, but are permanently changing in a very profound way. Okay. There is a summary of this constructivist model. You can read at the same time that I pronounce it. I read it also, so that's the reason why we put it in an extensive way here. The first thing is that human beings cannot know how things really are. I started getting in contact with this view when I read Thomas Kuhn's the structure of, in English, the structure of revolution. Let me see, of knowledge revolution, the structure of, well, I'll remember that later on. But this is famous, the structure of physical revolution, etc., or science revolution. It was in England in the 70s, and I was impressed by this idea that we cannot know how things really are, and that includes scientists. Second element of this model is that we build reality from ideas, principles, and values as key role in this construction process. as I said before, moods, emotions, paradigms, practices, and interests play a key role in the construction of reality. And each human being not only invent reality, but is inventing and reinventing himself in this process of inventing reality. The fundamental way in which human beings interact, according to the constructive model, the way in which we construct realities and build up ourselves is through conversation. And this is a crucial element in this model, which is different from discussion or just talking. Conversation is understood as a process of transformation in the interaction with other human beings, where linguistics, but also emotional, cultural, and spiritual domains are all involved. In this model, science does not consist in discovering truth and permanent laws of universal validity, but rather in generating interpretations, paradigms, mental models regarding the perceptive recurrences. So, yes, this is not a subjective way of thinking. There are certain recurrences out there, but we, from that, invent reality and invent ourselves. And so these paradigms are not validated by their veracity, universality, and permanence, but by their validity. And this is a radical change from our traditional view of seeing reality. And this way of looking at the process of knowing and being gets out near to the other cultures. If you read this piece of the knowledge creating company from Nonagi Takeuchi, to me, one of the best, or maybe the best to me, book on innovation, you'll see that they argue that create new knowledge means not metaphorically, literally, to recreate the company and everyone in an ongoing process of personal and organizational self-renewal. For them, the self is always changing. Strictly speaking, there is no self in the way we understand self. There is a self permanently changing. This is an exercise we use for people to have an experience of constructivism in the epistemological component. I invite you to see what you see, to maybe to write in the notebook you are using or whatever, what you see. Most people in Western countries and some Eastern countries also see here 3 people, maybe a family, in a house which has a window. And some people see that they are within the house, and others see that they are outside the house. Well, the researchers that conducted this study in some part of Africa discovered that people there saw a man, a woman with a bundle on her head, a child, and a tree. And when making this exercise with my students in the 80s at the School of Engineering, some of them would see university classmates looking out through prison bars. This was because during those years of dictatorship, protests were common at the School of Engineering. And these protests often took place in front of the school. Many students ended being imprisoned for their actions. So that's the reason why they see that. This is a good example of how we see what we see in an historical and sociological and cultural context. I invite you to do another exercise, which has to be with moods. I invite you to ask yourself, maybe you can close your eyes to look inside and ask yourself, which are the moods, emotions you are at this moment? It's usual that we have more than one. We are oscillating between 2, 3, or more. So I invite you to have a look at this and then have a look at you and sense you. What are your emotions? Secondly, I ask you, do you think those are the best emotions to construct this workshop, to build up this? Because according to radical constructivism, you are creating this webinar. And I'm sure that if there are 50 people here, there are 50 different webinars being constructed. And so the question is, can you change those moods at this moment? And how do you do that? Well, the fact that we realize what our moods are in a certain situation is the starting point to change it. One of the things we do with people in different environments, classes, workshops, and other, is to invite them to practice observing and changing emotions, our own and emotions of others. And we argue that leadership has a lot to do with this. So I invite you to observe your mood. And at the same time, I invite you to put an emphasis not in being in agreement or in disagreement, to put your focus more on what you don't understand, on what disturbs you, because probably it is in that emotions where you can find more benefits coming from this webinar. Try to build up this webinar thinking in your concrete benefits for you. Okay. I'm not going to, there, something happened here. Let me see what happens. I'm going to skip one part of this, which is, I think it's very much more difficult. And I'm going to go to this complex dynamic system. Well, actually, the first time in which we have used this system even though partially we use it in previous projects, is in this Aysén project, which Álvaro is going to explain later on. We use this model, which is similar to neural network of human beings. And we say that this way of looking at organizations allow us to design and assess the impact of interventions, perturbations in different parts of the system. And we have developed this 5 components model in which we have human capital, relational capital, directional capital, which is similar to strategic capital. And we have recently included this CE2 capital, which is emotional plus spiritual capital. And you can see we have been working this in the last hours, actually. That's the reason why this graph is handmade by me a few minutes ago. But we are going to work on this because I think it's very interesting to go into the way each one of these capital is built up. Let me see if there is something else. Let's see. No, I think this is enough for this topic. Well, in the Q&A part of this, we can obviously go in a deeper way into some of these things. So let's go into another key factor, self-awareness. We have been working with self-awareness as main objective for more than 20 years. And the evolution of the way in which, for instance, management, new paradigms see the more important skills for leadership and management also play especially important in self-awareness. And we have developed a concept which we call escuchar, which is the use of all our capacities to generate interpretations that allow us to create value for the ones that are interacting in conversation, but for other people through the invention of new products, services, or all sort of possibility. And we also consider that it's key to improve conversational skills. One of the main important, the most important is precisely this escuchar. Escuchar is a word generated from joining observar and escuchar in español, and ChatGPT suggests, among other alternatives, to translate it into ops listening. And the idea is, if we make an effort to see, to discover the best parts of other human beings, we can generate much better interpretations of him or her in order to create value. And as I said, I lost the okay, here it's again. Well, as I was saying, management, as it happens because of competition, imposes companies to innovate very quickly, and they have been doing that even in this respect. This is the first special number of Harvard Business Review, the most read, the most famous journal, which is not probably an academic journal in management. And the cover of this special number says breakthrough leadership is personal. And it says also why knowing yourself is the best strategy today. And the editor's letter, it says, you can read there. The first one is well known. It was said, they said by Einstein, among other people, that we have to change our old habits of thinking, mental models, paradigm, to uncover fresh solutions to perennial problems. But the second one, and there are 4, says it also means breaking through the interpersonal barriers that we all erect against genuine human contact. And this, I argue, I propose you, is a starting point for what I call the humanizing of management, putting the humanity of humans in the center of leadership and management. But there is more. In 2014, Harvard International Business School ran a study asking 90 corporations in all continents about the skills they nowadays demand from MBAs. And surprisingly, they are not the traditional ones, finance, marketing, etc. Those hard skills, as you can see there, are in the lower positions, execution and sales. But the most important surprise is that the number one, the main skill, say this corporation, they are considering to recruit people, is self-awareness. And second, integrity, and third, cross-cultural competence. Then the soft skills were named until not very long away, which are considered professional skills nowadays, following. And we were very pleased that when this and the Harvard Business Review appeared, we were already working with self-awareness as a main objective of our programs, because self-awareness is also the key for people to be positive agents in the process of creating or strengthening social capital. But there is more. The mindful revolution, according to Time, the Center for Compassion at Stanford University. Thank you very much, Tina, for being here. Quite an honor. And I hope to see you soon. Tina Seeley is the director of the Stanford Technology Ventures Program. Very good friends from a long time. So thank you very much for taking time to be here. And also we have the Greater Good Science Center at Berkeley University. All these are tendency into putting self-awareness in the center of this. And more surprise, look at this. This is the New York Times covering the new handbook of US Army. It says, the manual has a section on the importance of spirituality, which is a long chapter in this handbook, with emphasis on meditation, journaling, and how the act of serving other people helps some soldiers realize the interconnectedness of all things and people. I invite you to take this diapo and work with that. and search for this, because this is a very crucial revolution. I mean, it is a turning point and a very positive a hope for doing what we call humanizing humanity, and stop craziness, as I named that. And coming back to the ways in which we work with different organizations with the goal of strengthening social capital. Of listening, we say, is a very important skill for building social capital, and we invite you to prove it. We are not going to explain there, but we are going to develop that and put it in our webpage in an easy way to use it. But as I said before, it is this skill of paying attention to people, to individual persons or groups of people, looking for a way to generate positive interpretations based on which we can generate value of different sorts. This listening has three control variables. The ones that are more easily modified, and which you could do it now, it's ideas, values, emotions, and moods, and also interests, breakdowns from which you come to the construction of reality through the listening. Paradigms and practices are much more difficult to change, but it can be done, and we do in long-term processes of building social capital. And we say that listening is key, and it's a key variable to learn, to innovate, to lead, and also to converse, to go into these interactions, which, according to Maturana, is a transformation in the interaction, in which emotions, language interact, and we transform ourselves in that interaction. I'll go now, I think I ran out of time, into some projects and testimonials. Oh, I didn't say that. What's the way in which we, let me go back. This is what we call technologies of social capital construction, or socio-technologies. Basically, what we do is to generate contexts, and we are talking about engineering of contexts. We design contexts in which people develop basic socio-emotional skills such as communication, teamwork, and others. Leadership and political skills, needing for some people for managing and influencing within organizations that relate with other organizations in a good, proactive way. But the most important, what we put in the center of all our program, is increasing awareness and this capacity of listening, which is the door of entrance to conversation and transformation in the interaction with other people. We do it through workshops, ideally residential workshop, but mainly through long-term projects, diplomados, we call them, certified program, and also endorsed program for organizations, public and private organizations. In these long-term processes, we also achieve an increase in mutual knowledge, the basis of trust. So we increase trust, which we know is a proxy variable for the best proxy variable for social capital. And people increase their personal social capital. The number, quality, and diversity of relationship among participants. And obviously, we search for and we achieve increase in social capital of the group participating in this program. And now, very briefly, let's go into the cases, the main projects we have developed. We have a problem here. Well, this is, I don't say with the same testimony, I don't know, testimonials words. This is Ricardo Neira is leader of the process in Concepcion. He participated very actively in the second version of this programming Concepcion. We ran 4 times this program of 1 year of duration. And the results were very, very well valued by different people. This is one of them. There are personal testimonials. This is by a very good friend that probably is here from a company on innovation. This is the METCAL project, which we can also talk about in the Q&A part of it. It's a way of using teamwork to help people to change in certain aspects they want to change, because they are not very positive for them, either in the labor's domain or in the personal and social sphere. The ideally is that they identify one problem characteristic which it's costly for them in different domains. This is another testimony. Another participant. This is the manager, the plant manager of an important company in Concepcion, and it was also president of an organization of companies that, according to certain people, was born from this diplomado. I assume you have already read that. This is also a testimonial. I don't remember who was that. This is part of the mess I made by making changes in the last hours. Have you read that? This is a testimony related to the work we started doing in 2007 in Trujillo state in Venezuela. which they started in 2004 after reading a paper on that presented the result, the work done in Aysén with colloquios of leaders. So they started working 2004, and then they invited me to go and help there presentially there, and they went on working on that for several years. Especially important is this change in the association of the industry and commerce of Varela, the main city in terms of economics in the state of Trujillo and in Venezuela. And that's it. That's my presentation. And how do you say that? I leave the space for Álvaro Contreras to go on.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for being here. My name is Álvaro Contreras. I hold a degree in industrial engineering and a master's in public policy from the Universidad de Chile. I live in Puerto Aysén, in the heart of Chilean Patagonia, and currently work as a research assistant for the KAYSEN project, building social capital and creating a culture of innovation in Aysén. And I also serve as the manager of the Productive Development Corporation of Aysén. Now we will dive deeper into one of the most ambitious socio-technological projects ever undertaken, which remains ongoing to this day. To understand KAYSEN, we first need to look at the unique context of this region. Aysén is home to 103,000 inhabitants with a population density of just 0.95 inhabitants per square kilometer, highlighting the region's vast and sparsely populated landscape. It is also isolated from the rest of Chile by land. Remarkably, 52% of the territory is classified as a protected area, making it a natural paradise. However, this pristine environment coexists with an economic strongly influenced by two dominant sectors, the public sector and salmon farming. The region also faces significant socio-environmental conflicts, particularly the tension between growth and conservation, which is expected to remain as a central challenge with increasingly polarized perspectives. And finally, Aysén inhabitants have experienced a sense of loss of agency over time, once characterized by pioneers building settlements through their own efforts. Many residents now perceive the region's development as reliant on decisions made at the national level. So, it's a vast region with a small population that remains relatively disconnected from the rest of Chile. While not entirely isolated, it operates close to being a closed system, and Aysén is both a beautiful place to live and a highly attractive destination for visitors. So there are people interested all over the world to do things here. Economically, two main sectors dominate the landscape, offering the most potential for visible results if you work with them. However, the region faces conflicts that are likely to intensify without sufficient social capital. And additionally, Aysén has experienced significant cultural shifts over short periods. So given Professor Vignolo explanation of the importance of building social capital, Aysén seems like a very interesting place to do something about it, isn't it? So the KAYSEN project is inspired by the Japanese principle of continuous improvement, where small, consistent changes lead to significant long-term benefits. It's a collaboration between the Innovation and Social Technology program of the Department of Industrial Engineering at Universidad de Chile and key actors of Aysén. Launched in May 2022 and is still ongoing. Its primary goal is to build social capital and foster a culture of innovation, and its main objectives are to develop socio-emotional and leadership skills for its inhabitants, co-design and implement projects with high social benefits, expand self and world awareness about the new possibilities that science and technology open up in current and potential authorities and leaders of Aysén. The KAYSEN project uses an unconventional and flexible methodology that focuses on co-creation, co-design, and collaboration. First, there are no predefined plans or agreements. The process begins without formal commitments, and instead, the initial offer is really simple: to start a conversation. During this initial conversation, if both parties show interest, a co-design mechanism for continuity is developed. This mechanism often takes the form of a workshop, a team-building activity, or a conversation forum, creating a space for broader conversation. So this initial stage is essential for building trust, identifying potential collaborators, and uncovering the practices and paradigms within these organizations. To facilitate this process, we rely on informal settings such as shared meals, coffee breaks, and road trips, because these interactions provide valuable insights that help shape collaboration, tailoring it to the individuals and institutions we are working with. So after these initial activities, we move on to the next steps that a continuity plan is defined with the interested institutions and individuals. We map relevant actors to identify connections both within and beyond the region of Aysén, and efforts are made to activate and engage key stakeholders. Additionally, we follow an important principle: don't put the river. This reflects our commitment to respecting the autonomy of the institutions and people involved in KAYSEN initiatives. By doing so, we ensure that all actions are collaborative and context sensitive. So the project has achieved some significant results through its collaborative approach. We have worked with key organizations, including public institutions such as the Municipality of Aysén, the Puerto Aysén Hospital, the CESFAM, which is a family center, health center of Puerto Aysén, professional associations like the Social Workers Association, civil society, the regional gendarmerie, and even prisoners at the Center of Studies at Work of Valle Verde. We also have worked with educators from remote areas, such as the Wichas Islands. Overall, we have engaged with over 450 participants, created opportunities for conversations and development across various sectors. The average score for these activities is 6.6 on a scale of 1 to 7, which is a very good grade here in Chile. And beyond the numbers, we also gather insights into how participants feel after our activities. At the end of each session, attendees share their emotional states, and the three most common emotions reported during the workshops were gratitude, enthusiasm, and also interest. Additionally, KAYSEN has fostered a strong link with industrial engineering department at Universidad of Chile, because a dedicated course was created to direct thesis projects focused on designing high social impact initiatives for Aysén. So far, 4 students have graduated through this program, and one of these projects, my own, provided a characterization of social capital in Aysén. KAYSEN has also played a key role in reviving historical initiatives. The main one is a summer school that was originally launched in 2006 with the presence of the very famous professor at UCLA, Carter Mead. And this was brought back and transformed into a festival that had 18 presentations and 32 speakers within a week. On a broader scale, KAYSEN has established national level collaborations with academics, business leaders, business leaders and key professional associations, and these collaborations have increased the social capital of Aysén residents, obviously, but has also strengthened the region's image as an attractive place for diverse projects and opportunities. This point is significant because when people visit Aysén, regardless of their field of interest, they often express three common observations: a desire to return for vacations or even move here, the recognition of Aysén's high potential for business and research opportunities, and the notion that it could serve as a safe haven in the event of a third world war. We are very far from the rest of the world, so we are kind of safe in case of any nuclear emergency. And we have also identified some key cultural aspects that prevent the creation of social capital. The first one, as I said before, is the loss of a sense of agency. There is a widespread perception that the rest of Chile owes a debt to Aysén, which often translates into a passive attitude, waiting for others to take action instead of initiating change locally. There is also what we call a discontinuity syndrome, because despite the positive outcomes of the activities we have facilitated over these years, after accompanied by explicit stakeholder commitments to continue working on them, many of these initiatives are eventually forgotten by the stakeholders. Conversations may persist, but it often feels as if the topic we were talking about has simply vanished. There is also the invisibility of possibilities. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of individuals eager to support Aysén's development. Countless opportunities exist that require only the engagement of key regional leaders to succeed, but if it's not that these opportunities don't exist, it's just that the leaders we are working with don't see them. They can't see them because they, Professor Vignolo explained something about it in his presentation. And there is also what we call social homeostasis, that this is because the population of Aysén is characterized by resilience. This is the ability of a system to return to its original state after a disruption. And while this homeostasis can be beneficial in some cases, it becomes a challenge when the equilibrium point is suboptimal for building social capital. In such instance, deliberate steps must be taken to put beyond this state and create meaningful change. And also, as a result of the first phase of KAYSEN, at the age of 25 years, I was able to take on the role of the manager of Aysen, the Corporation of Development here in the region, and enabling me to have a stronger presence in the community and ensure the continuity for projects. So after a year and a half living in Puerto Aysén, I want to share some key insights that I have had from a practitioner point of view in terms of building social capital. The first one is that self-awareness as a sine qua non condition for building social capital. As Professor Vignolo emphasized, self-awareness is one of the most essential skills in today's world, particularly when it comes to building social capital. A former CEO of a multi-million-dollar insurance company captured this idea succinctly. The success of an intervention depends on the interior condition of the intervener. While measuring change in social capital can be challenging in the short term, we can more readily observe the transformation that occurs within ourselves. Engaging with a human community inevitably brings about changes through constant coexistence, and these transformations become easier to recognize when we cultivate mindfulness using tools like journaling and meditation. At the heart of this process lies a critical question that for fostering self-awareness. This is, from where am I acting? What are the values I am standing on? These questions, which focuses on the foundation of our actions, are even more important than asking what I am doing it or how am I going to make it. Where I am doing the things I am doing is more important than the why and the how. And there is another key insight that I want to share with you, that is that political skills are essential to navigate in cultures with low interpersonal trust, such as that of Aysén. We enter the realm of politics when actions need to be coordinated among people who are not necessarily obligated to collaborate in a given context. And to navigate through these situations, I recognize three key political skills. The first one is seeing yourself as a player on the field, understanding and managing power, being aware of how power relates to identity in a community, and knowing when to put forward and when to step back. The other one is recognizing what matters. This is identifying patterns, analyzing the system in which you are operating, and evaluating the possibilities that arises. And the last one is making others see what matters. This is convincing, persuading, and inspiring others to do work toward a shared goal. Political skills are often overlooked in traditional education systems, and I think that's something we should take care of, and that's what I wanted to share this with you. The third one is to think probabilistically. This paradigm, borrowed from the world of finance, involves evaluating different possibilities based on their expected value. It is crucial to avoid dismissing high-impact initiatives simply because they seem challenging at first glance. Building social capital increases the likelihood of low-probability, high-impact projects becoming feasible. Additionally, it is important to understand the behavior of stakeholders as a probabilistic process. Since we cannot control all variables, some processes accelerate or slow down depending on external factors. Actors and projects are often activated unexpectedly, requiring teams to remain flexible, reprioritize when necessary, and aim for the highest future possibility, as Otto Charmer will say. The last one is when a process is triggered, it is crucial to have someone dedicated to ensuring continuity. This might seem obvious, but when building social capital, particularly in organizations and communities with low initial levels of this variable, incremental changes are often insufficient. Instead, we have observed that the process becomes more effective when there is a trigger event that shakes up the organization, such as the involvement of an external facilitator, in this case, like Professor Vignolo, and someone dedicated to ensuring continuity. That's the role I am playing right now in Aysén. And this helped to counteract cultural homeostasis or this tendency to return to the previous equilibrium point, allowing change to take root and grow. So that's the presentation I wanted. That's what I wanted to share with you. I wanted to share also Tristan and the International Social Capital Association for make this webinar possible. Thank you.
Oh, muchas gracias, Álvaro and Carlos. Thanks very much for your presentation. It was really interesting. We'll have some questions and discussion now. You can either raise your hand within Zoom. You'll find that under the reactions button. And when you're called upon, if you could unmute yourself and ask your question. If you're not in a position to actually ask the question yourself because of where you're located, feel free to let us know in the chat, and I'd be happy to ask the question on your behalf. So we're really interested in what you think and what you have to say about this presentation, and we'd really encourage you to get involved and ask questions and raise ideas that you'd like to share. So while we're waiting for the first question from the audience, perhaps I might start with the first one, first question. It seems very much that the idea of building social capital that most people focus on tends to involve establishing groups or creating networks, building relationships, but it doesn't seem to appreciate the main point of what you've talked about here, which is that idea about self-awareness, the importance of listening, the importance of developing a meaningful connection and relationship with other people. You know, the work of the World Bank, for example, focused on establishing groups, but there was much less focus on the kinds of things that you've talked about today. So my question is, it seems that the way we should be building social capital is different than the way most people think about it. How do we communicate with people the way you've talked about it? How do we get that message across?
I think that's a question for you, Tristan. You are the president of this organization. And what I would say, Tristan, is that we have to get gather together and communicate through different ways the importance of social capital. A lot of people in the political sphere do not realize this. Some of them think that it's very difficult to change. And one of the main arguments, as we're saying, is that we can change a lot people, especially if we work improving their self-awareness. But there is another ontological revolution coming from constructivism and neuroplasticity. People can change and can change a lot, and it depends on the context. And people can change at any age. And this is a real, very important revolution because if we work this way, health of people improve. And the conclusion of several studies, including this Harvard, the longest study on the factors that explain quality of life, shows that main variables are the quantity, the quality, and the diversity of the relations of one people. So, well, I believe, Tristan, that we have to work together with a lot of people like the ones are here. Maybe we have to create a special journal to this. And I'm very happy that you already organized this first conference in 2020, say, in Dubai. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that also.
I want to address Tristan.
Go ahead, Álvaro.
I understood that you're asking about our approach, putting the focus on self-awareness instead of just building networks, right? So I think the answer here is very tautological. So for implementing networks, you need that the nodes, the people in this case, have the ability to establish relationships with other human beings. And what are the main skills that allow that is self-awareness. And that is basically the point, or social-emotional skills. You cannot have social capital if you don't know how to communicate yourself, if you're not able to listen the other, if you don't know how to have a good conversation without interrupting each other. So that's basically the point we're making here. Instead of only trying to connect people with similar interests, you really need to focus on the individual. How is the individual behaving with others? And I think that's the different approach we are doing from this perspective.
I think you've made a really great point, Álvaro, and I think that's kind of answered my question, is that the assumption that most people seem to take is that if you get people together, simply connect people, whether it's within a group or a network, then they will be able to form a strong and meaningful relationship. But I think the point you're trying to make is that getting people together, of course, is important, but if people lack those individual competencies to be able to listen, to be able to have emotional intelligence and understand the other person's point of view, then you're not going to be able to build meaningful social capital and meaningful connections and relationships. And building on what Carlos was saying as well, the International Social Capital Association, the purpose is to bring people together in forums such as this, to have these kind of conversations, because it is challenging to communicate against the dominant paradigm that doesn't seem to appreciate and understand the importance of social connections. And I'm always looking for new ways or different ways, better ways to communicate the importance of social capital to audiences in different parts of the world who don't necessarily appreciate the value and importance of it. And as Carlos was saying, we are going to hold our first international conference on social capital in Dubai in February of 2026. And so I'd encourage anybody who's interested in the concept to follow that conference and perhaps consider attending it as well. So we do have a couple of questions in the chat, and I see someone also has their hand up. We'll go to the chat first. Juan Carlos asks about the implementation and how was oblistening evaluated? If Álvaro or Carlos could answer that question.
Álvaro? What would you say?
Please, that last answer, question.
It was the question by Juan Carlos asking about the evaluation. How was oblistening evaluated?
Are the analysis?
Let me start, Álvaro. Very difficult, and this is a discussion at the scientific level, and I believe that we are going to witness an interesting dispute between biologists, neuroscientists, and quantum physicists in relation to self-awareness and the question of evaluating, measuring changes in self-awareness is extremely difficult, and evaluating the change in the ability of listening is also very difficult. What we have done in certain cases is to ask people at the beginning of a certain process to ask other people, significant others, to assess their competences related to listening at the attitudinal level, etc., and then we ask people at the final part. But we have done very few, and that's a challenge we face. We have to develop ways of improving, evaluating of this sort of impact. Let me add one thing, Tristan, to the previous question about how to ensure that these social networks really create social capital. And I think, apart from self-awareness, this is a crucial thing is abandon the idea that you can know how things really are. Because if you abandon that, you can change from discussions about what I see with my own eyes, or I hear with my own ears, and you start relating with other people, not trying to convince the other people, but trying to change your mind. As Tara Brach, the spiritual teacher, says, a real listening is to incline to the other people, trying hard to change myself instead of changing the other. And the other thing is that the ontological part of radical constructivism helps people to see that we can change a lot and much more quicker than we think. It's not just meditation or journaling or thematic writings, but also, very important, these sort of groups in which we practice what we call reverential escuchar, in which we practice and cultivate acceptation, being grateful, and overall admiration, trying to extract the best part of the other people. Sorry, Juan Carlos, I know that it wasn't a very good complete answer. Maybe Álvaro can add something.
So I was reading your question, Juan Carlos. I think how was of listening evaluated? I'm not sure if it is clear from the presentation of Professor Vignolo about the results of different sociotechnologies that have been implemented over time. Most of them in the first decade of this millennium. And it's quite interesting that these processes of expansion of self-awareness doesn't pop, I don't know if that's the word, doesn't explode, for instance, in necessarily in short periods of time. There are people that after 2 years realize that some stuff that was said in a workshop with us made sense for them and changed the way they see the world radically. So listening is a technique that is taught in every workshop. It's hard to do an impact evaluation about ability that is kind of hard to measure. I mean, so I think I can't answer that question. There are some people that are more touched with this with the use of this technique, and there are others that don't engage that much.
All right, so there's lots of questions in the chat, but first let's go to Emilio, who has his hand up. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question or comment. Emilio, I think you're muted. You need to unmute yourself.
I have a question to Carlos Vignolo, probably my best teacher when I studied in the university. Hello, Carlos.
Hola.
I want to know your initial opinion about to introduce these ideas or some of these ideas in La Araucanía, a special region in Chile, where I come to live 8 years ago. I'm very interested in your work, in your investigation, but this region, these people is very special. Do you think we have a possibility to introduce your ideas with the KAYSEN system here, or is a very lovely idea, my idea, and it's not really possible?
Nice to see you here, Emilio. Well, according to some very intelligent people, that's the main problem we have in Chile. Nowadays we have others, but culturally speaking, the pacificación, getting peace in Araucanía is one of the main challenges we face. I think there are already people, very competent people working there, Nansen Institute from Noruega, and I take the chance to say that there are very good organizations in the world doing this, not using the social capital name, and we can talk with them to invite them to join ISCA and start conceptualizing what we do what they do in social capital terms with these components. One which has worked in Chile very much is the Consensus Building Institute from Boston. And the other, which is doing a great work worldwide and is already in Chile, is Otto Scharmer and the Brzezinski Institute. I think we as a group are not prepared for that. It's too difficult for us. We were prepared to go for the Bio-Bio region in the beginning of the century, but I wouldn't try that again in this moment, because the situation is much more difficult, and that's the reason why we are putting our efforts in the KAYSEN project. It's not even in the total region. So I think it's too much for us. Now, we are trying to add, to contribute to the big organizations doing this in the world, more than trying to compete with them. So maybe we could, and I'm going to take your suggestion, to talk with people working there to see if we can help them to improve their work.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, so we have quite a few more questions coming up in the chat. We'll see if we can get through them. We have about 15 minutes or so to go. If you think, feel free to either raise your hand or post in the chat, and we'll try and get to your question. So the next question is from Andre, who asks, how can universities contribute to building social capital within their communities? And what role do they play in fostering trust and collaboration?
Another very difficult question. But first of all, I think it's difficult to talk about universities in general. I think there are very different universities with very different purposes. I think that state universities and public universities should give an important role in fostering trust and social capital as one of their challenges, because if social capital is so relevant for economic, social, and cultural development, for what we call integral development, they should develop much more of that. But as you know, especially research universities, the largest universities, have a lot of, inertia. And it's not easy for them to change. But clearly, I am trying within the University of Chile of convincing people, seducing people, to start by increasing social capital within the universities, which is not very, very high. We tend to compete more than collaborate in university, especially since we adopt this competitive model coming from the States. We tend to use the American paradigm of university. So I think we should do more internally and externally, and but I don't see it as very easy. I think probably social organizations, non-governmental organizations, can do a better and quicker job on that subject.
Great. Feel free to jump in, Álvaro, if you have anything else to add.
Yes. So as I am not in the academia, I don't have any risk for saying this. So imagine a university is a place full of people that believes that there is a truth, that they discover truth somehow, that have a lot of confidence that what they are studying is right somehow. And what was the main point of the presentation of Professor Vignolo? It was, we have to get rid of that paradigm. And that's the problem. It's a place of full of smart people that has a PhD that believes that what they say is somehow true because statistics, methodology, and whatever. So they speak from their standpoints that one should think that academia has a very broad perspective, but since with the pass of time is so over-specialized, the perspective is only narrowing. They only know things about a specific topics that is becoming more and more specific. So it's really weird to talk about these people because they only know a lot about a topic and prefer not to get in touch with people that have or or have different points of view. So that's a perspective a little more radical.
Good point. Good point. I think it makes the
He
point
said
you're...
that. He said that. I don't agree with him.
Of course, of course. But the point is that there are many ways of experiencing and knowing many different types of knowledge, and social constructionism really makes that point that, like you said, everyone attending this webinar is attending effectively a different webinar, interpreting and understanding what's being said and in different ways, and we need to appreciate and understand that variety of different perspectives. So the next question in the chat comes from Daniel, who asks, what is the role of creating social capital in a world that seems increasingly polarized with low levels of mutual trust?
Well, that's exactly what we try to do, developing new ways of increasing social capital. I think it's urgent, and taking the risk Álvaro is introducing, I would say that the United States of America is urgently needing increasing social capital. And I don't know how they are going to come out of this polarization, cancellation they have got into. And probably my dear friend Sylvia Newcomb, who is here, thank you very much, Sylvia, for being here. I know she is suffering because of that. Maybe she is working with other people to produce some change there. But to answer the question, I think it's urgent. That's the reason why we value so much the existence of the International Social Capital Association. And I'm going, with Álvaro, we are going to do our best to increase the interest in Chile and Latin America in this topic. And we start trying different ways of doing it. So that's my answer.
Great. Álvaro, did you want to add anything?
Yes, I was thinking of what Harari will say. He talks about we are homo narrans, we build societies upon narratives and fictions. For example, for instance, for Harari, democracy is a fiction that we all believe in that fiction somehow. The problem is when we start losing trust in that fiction, and that the other respects what are the values or principles that underpin that narrative. So building social capital is key. Building social capital is like the glue in a society, for example. It's what makes that it don't break apart. And right now we are trying to make something kinda like a kintsugi, I think it's the word. Do you know that term? Japanese practice, I think it's Japanese or Chinese, of rebuilding a base that is broken using, I think it's gold. But if you search kintsugi, you will see that it's a base or something that is broke, that it's trying to be fixed using unions, using gold as a kind of glue. So that's a pretty good analogy, I think, for what we are trying to do by building social capital nowadays.
All right, let's move on. We've got a few more questions to try and get through and only about 4 or 5 minutes left. Max asks, the wine industry is a new potential economic activity in the Aysén region, is something that could create new social capital. In andyswines.com, we are pushing to the rescue of old vineyards and also see the climate extension to the region to evaluate producing grapes in certain geographic sites. Is there interest in working in this matter? There's just a short response perhaps from either Carlos or Álvaro for that one.
Álvaro knows about that. I know nothing.
This business, ¿cómo se llama? Business invitation. The only thing I know about wine in the region of Aysén is that there are some experiments in Chile Chico, that it's a place that it has a microclimate for doing this kind of stuff. You can also bet that due to climate change, probably in a few years, the region will be able to have vineyards, but that's not sure, at least. The only thing I can say, there is a lot of land. It's getting every year more expensive since everyone is buying land here. Everyone wants to escape to Patagonia. So if you're betting to start a vineyard here in Aysén, I think better now than never.
All right, there's a comment, I believe, from Ali. I'm not sure there's a question here, but a comment in the chat. Thank you for these interesting talks. Social capital development invites and inspires a shift in directional focus, particularly as the more nuanced patterns of leaders' self-awareness shifts the social field. It may be that both visible, tangible dimensions, as well as the less visible, implicit domains of subtle, devotional and appreciative awareness might be mapped as a polarity to manage. Of course, context matters. I don't think there's a question there, but Álvaro or Carlos, feel free to comment if you have any.
Not me. We are running out of time. Maybe we can take another question.
Sure. So there's a question as well from Veronica, who says, talking about improving relations and trust within the territory, has the project been linked to groups of Aysén CFT or those from the University of Aysén for a broader discussion to increase the number of potential participants? Have you presented them to local and regional decision makers?
Álvaro is the expert. I know a little bit, but Álvaro knows much more than me.
The first thing, Veronica is the representative of the science ministry here in the region. So since this talk is being recorded, I'm not going to speak about the CFT or the University of Aysén, but I offer you the possibility of have a talk. I'm going to answer you my email, because we have some approaches to the university and also the CFT. There are some of the insights that I presented that are related also from that experience. So yeah, those are the political skills I have learned here in Aysén.
Veronica, feel free to unmute yourself if you'd like to say something.
Yes, thank you, Tristan. Thanks, Álvaro. Yes, the aim of my question was related mainly with the possibility of improve the work that you have been doing so far. And the CFT is forming people, local people. So the aspects that are considered in KAYSEN probably are part a very important part to form new people that stays in the area. And I saw in the University of Aysén also because there is a project that is funded by the Ministry of Science from our agency that is Knowledges 2030, Conocimientos 2030, that is working, that have a focus on social aspects. So also probably it's important for them to consider part of the work that you have been doing already in the area. Thanks.
So if you can make the articulation, we will be delighted to collaborate. So you have my email and let's keep talking. So it is an area of interest working with the CFT. The first conference Professor Vignolo gave when the project was starting was at the CFT. And we have also have a few words with the new dean, I think is the word, but there are some initial approaches. So if you can make that articulation, it will be great.
Great to see social capital in action right now. So we have run out of time, unfortunately. So there are a few more questions in the chat, unfortunately, we're not going to get to, but we need to wrap up because we've run out of time. So once again, muchas gracias, Álvaro and Carlos, for your presentation. We really appreciate all the time and effort it takes to put into this. And thank you, everyone, for joining and taking part in this conversation. I've posted some links in the chat to the International Social Capital Association, as well as the community platform that everyone is welcome to join. It's free, whether you're a member or not. We have a great series of webinars continuing. Next week, we have a webinar on social capital and urban design. The webinars are free and everyone is welcome to attend. And we're going to look into perhaps holding some future events in Spanish, because there's clearly a lot of interest in this topic. And we want to facilitate and encourage everybody in the world who's interested in the concept of social capital to get involved in this association. So once again, thanks everyone. When I stop the recording, feel free to stay online a little longer if you want to have some informal discussions, or if you need to leave, of course, that is no problem. We hope to see you at future events.
Thank you very much, Tristan.
Thank you very much.